Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The October 10th, 2019 meeting of the Brighton Town Board will now come to order. I want to welcome everybody that's here tonight, and I would like to start by asking everybody, if you are able to please rise. I'm going to ask our town clerk, Dan Amon, to lead us in the pledge this evening.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a few housekeeping announcements to start things. First, in the event of an emergency, you will hear the town hall's emergency alarm system. And if you hear that, please leave the room and please leave the building immediately, either by the door to my right, marked exit. If you go out that door, turn right, go down the stairs, go out the rear door of Town Hall and away from the building. Or you can leave by the double doors at the rear of the room, the doors you came in, go through the lobby, out main front doors of Town Hall, go down the steps, and again, away from the building. We welcome you, whether you're here in person or watching us remotely, either on our live stream, our YouTube live stream, on our website, or if you're watching on Spectrum Digital Cable 1303, our community access channel. If you're here in the room, tonight's agenda and all of our supporting material are on the back table. But if you're watching remotely, you can go to the town's website, www.townofbrighton.org. All of that same material, tonight's agenda and the supporting materials, are available on the town webpage. I do want to acknowledge our ASL interpreters tonight, Susan Pence and Samantha Gevertz. Welcome, thank you again. And before we get started with our open forum, we actually have three proclamations this evening. Tiffany, I'm going to ask you to come up. Come on up, absolutely. The month of October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month each year. And I see Christine has her purple water glass. But this is a month to wear purple in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it's also a month where there are a number of activities around domestic violence awareness. My personal favorite being the Willow Domestic Violence Center Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event, which was this past Saturday morning. And I had the pleasure of walking a mile wearing a striking pair of size 14 red pumps, along with over 600 people walking to raise money for Willow. So, but in general, there are so many organizations here locally that are engaged in addressing what continues to be a serious problem. It's a problem that crosses all borders, rural, urban, suburban, racial, faith-based. No one in today's world is truly safe from being affected by domestic violence. So it is all of us, men and women, young and old. There are things we can all do to make sure that domestic violence soon becomes a thing of the past. So I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas, since its designation in 1987, October has been recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in an effort to help people understand the severe consequences of abusive relationships, and the damage it does to individuals, families, and our entire country as domestic violence destroys the homes, childhood, and freedom of an estimated 13 million people per year in a way that can reverberate across generations. And whereas while home is generally envisioned as a place of love, warmth, and comfort, for far too many it is a prison instead of sanctuary, demoralizing instead of supportive, and dangerous instead of safe. The numbers are staggering. Nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience severe physical violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. Approximately 5 million children are exposed to domestic violence each year, and only 1 out of 3 people injured during a domestic violence incident will ever receive medical care for their injuries. And whereas at the community level and as a nation, we must resolve to have zero tolerance for acts of domestic violence, and National Domestic Violence Awareness Month is an appropriate time to reaffirm our steadfast commitment to empowering survivors and ending this deeply destructive abuse. And whereas in Rochester, Willow Domestic Violence Center works in concert with other organizations to prevent domestic violence and help survivors of domestic violence gain access to services and support to live a safe and empowered life. Now there be it proclaimed that I, Brighton Town Supervisor William W. Maley, and the members of our town board do hereby declare October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the town of Brighton. And we extend our sincere gratitude to all who are providing support, shelter, and hope to survivors of domestic violence, and strongly encourage those who are currently being subjected to domestic violence to seek assistance by calling the Willow Domestic Violence Center 24-hour hotline at 585-222-SAFE or by visiting their website at willowcenterny.org. And this proclamation is signed this 10th day of October 2019 by myself and by the entire Brighton Town Board. I'm pleased to have you here, Tiffany. I want to present this to you, and if you have anything you'd like to say, I think it would be wonderful. We can't focus our attention on this enough.
Well, thank you so much. We're delighted to be here. The cause is very near and dear to us. We do serve about 7,500 residents of Monroe County every year through our 49-bed emergency shelter, our crisis hotline, counseling, and several other crucial programs. So we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to, note as well, law enforcement is a big supporter of Willow and specifically a big supporter of that fundraising event last month. Our new chief, Dave Cathaldi, very quickly got right into the swing of things and was rocking a pair of really sharp-looking shoes that they were gold and they matched his badge very, very nicely. Color coordinating, clearly a sign of his leadership skills. We had our representatives from the Brighton Fire Department were there, Chief Tantello from Irondequoit, other law enforcement professionals. So it really was a great event. And as I said, over 600 people in the community came out to stand with Willow. All right, I'd like to invite, we have a great contingent from Brighton Memorial Library and specifically the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library as well. So come on up, everybody. We are coming up very soon on National Friends of Libraries Week. And while at some level, I think we're all friends, small f, friends of libraries, we in Brighton are particularly fortunate at Brighton Memorial Library to have friends, capital F, friends of Brighton Memorial Library, who work as volunteers in so many different ways, perhaps most visibly with their three-time triannual, I guess is the right word, used book sale. The fall sale just completed last week. I got a couple great books, and I'm looking forward to reading them in my spare time. And also the bookstore there in the library. But they perform a variety of other services and fundraising activities to support the Brighton Memorial Library. And I know our executive director of the library, Jennifer Reese-Taggart, would be the first to tell us all that they would not be able to do many of the important work of Brighton Memorial Library were it not for the Friends. So each year we celebrate National Friends of Libraries Week. This year it is the week of October 20th through 26th. And so we have a proclamation in their honor. Whereas United for Libraries, a division of the American Library Association, recognizes National Friends of Library Week each year to celebrate the many ways that volunteer Friends of Libraries support public libraries across the country. Whereas libraries are essential repositories of knowledge whose public purpose is fundamental to democracy, from promoting an informed citizenry to building community. And whereas it is significant that libraries are supported by and open to all members of the public, and notable that the volunteers who comprise Friends of Libraries dedicate their time and talents to the continual improvement of those libraries. And whereas the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library play a critical role in supporting and helping innovate our library through fundraising, programming, and capital improvements, holding the book sales, implementing the edifying and entertaining Books Sandwiched In series, and most recently, purchasing a new outdoor electronic sign to keep the entire community up to date on the latest happenings in our beloved library. Whereas the dedication of the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library underscores the fact that our library is a cornerstone of the community and helps ensure that everyone has the opportunity to engage in the joy of lifelong learning. And whereas the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library set a phenomenal example of volunteerism that leads to positive civic engagement and the enhancement of our community by joining our stellar librarians as guardians of this public asset for current and future generations. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Brighton Town Supervisor William W. Maley, and the members of our Town Council do hereby declare that October 20 through 26th, 2019 is National Friends of Libraries Week here in the town of Brighton. And we sincerely thank the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library for their excellent work and urge everyone to help support our library through membership with the Friends. And this proclamation is signed October 10th, 2019, again, signed by myself and by the entire town board. And I'm pleased to, I guess I'll present it initially to you, Jennifer, but I know you will share it with.
I will present it to the Friends
Friends.
president.
Good. And if either one of you would like to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you, Bill, and the entire town board for recognizing the Friends of Brighton Memorial Library. Thanks to funding provided entirely by the Friends, we had over 1,280 programs last year. They are also reliable and generous donors of our annual campaign. The library's annual programming and annual campaign requests to Friends are financed through, as Bill mentioned, annual book sales, 3 of them, the Friends Bookstore, membership dues, and a lot of volunteer hours. And I should mention 95% of the proceeds that the Friends take in come back to the library. Over the past few years, the Friends made capital campaign donations that have allowed us to purchase laptops for our computer lab, a DVD repair system, updated media equipment, and seed money needed to renovate the entrance foyer. Most recently, the Friends approved our request for the replacement of 3 laptops that are used in-house, 2 new large monitors that we'll use to market programs, reupholster of several learning center chairs, a heavy wagon that we need to transport donations, new shades and blackout blinds for the learning center, a second bike rack, and a replacement disc cleaning and resurfacing machine. If you're not already, please consider joining the Friends of BML. They're a very worthy library support organization. They ultimately contribute to our highly literate community. The dues are very reasonable as well. I should mention the individual memberships are $10. Thank you again for your strong support of the library and specifically of the Friends by way of the proclamation. Thank you. Thanks, you guys.
And finally, we have a proclamation recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day 2019. Whereas the town of Brighton recognizes that long before the formation of Brighton as we know it, Indigenous peoples of the Haudenosaunee Confederation were residents and stewards of the land in which we live. And whereas the Seneca Nation were known as keepers of the Western Gate among the members of the Haudenosaunee, guarding the western areas of the Confederation from outsiders. And whereas the community we now know as Brighton was traversed by the Seneca, and one of Brighton's best-known landmarks, the Council Rock, was the site of Seneca councils and stood along the trail leading from Canandaigua Lake to what is now known as Rochester. And whereas the Council Rock was dedicated, and now I quote, to the memory of the Nunde Waono, the great Senecas, keepers of the Western Door, by the Rochester Historical Society, and this is great, on October 9th, 1919, 100 years and 1 day ago, that rock was dedicated by the Rochester Historical Society. And whereas we recognize the importance of the Seneca to our history, and in keeping with our commitment to diversity in the community, honor the role they played and the contributions they made in this region, along with the other members of the Haudenosaunee Confederation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Brighton Town Supervisor William W. Maley, and the members of our Town Council do hereby declare October 14, 2019 is Indigenous Peoples Day in the town of Brighton, and encourage all residents of Brighton to respect and honor the history of our first residents and learn about their history and culture and how they helped to shape our region and our community. And this proclamation is signed this 10th day of October 2019, again by myself and by the entire town board, and we will be displaying this proclamation in our lobby. And I just want to mention, I'm going to read this entire dedication. I found this, and it's how I learned that it was almost exactly 100 years ago that actually not only the Rochester Historical Society, but also the Seneca Indian Council Rock Commission of Brighton, New York, that dedicated this, the Council Rock. And if you've been out there, you've seen the plaque. But I'll read the entire plaque. To the memory of the Nunde Waono, the great Senecas, keepers of the Western Door, this rock, around which, according to tradition, they gathered for councils, is dedicated by the Seneca Indian Council Rock Commission of Brighton, New York, and the Rochester Historical Society, October 9th, 1919. At the coming of the first white settlers to the town of Brighton, this rock stood under a great elm tree beside the old Indian trail leading from Canandaigua Lake to the present site of Rochester. 50 yards to the northeast stands the Orange Stone Tavern, frequented by visitors coming to see the falls of the Genesee. And of course, that is the Stone Tolan House, as we now know it, the oldest standing structure in Monroe County. So really some remarkable history of our community. Okay, we will now proceed, as we do at every meeting, with our open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for anyone to come in and ask questions, make comments at town board meetings, really on any germane topic relating to the town, whether or not it's on the agenda this evening. You also have the opportunity, if you're watching from somewhere other than here, if you're viewing us remotely, you can call in during the open forum at 303-3060. And if you're deaf or hard of hearing, you can use your video phone, calling that same number, 303-3060. Someone will answer the phone to take your questions or your comments and relay them up to us. Again, that number is 303-3060. We look forward to hearing from you. So with that, the open forum is now available. Is there anyone that would like to address the town board on any matter this evening? Josh, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Joshua Barth. I'm the county legislator for District 24, and that encompasses parts of southeast Rochester and north central Brighton. And on an occasional basis, I come down and like to give reports on what's going on in the county legislature. The county legislature met in the full body 2 nights ago. We meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening. Feels like 6 o'clock in the morning. And that night we stayed late. We adjourned at about 10:20 p.m. That's in large part because we had about 50 public speakers, and that's actually a good thing. We'd like to have public speakers come down, and if you're watching me, it's an opportunity to come and talk to the legislature about what's important to you and what's going on in the county. The 50 speakers spoke mostly about early intervention and preschool funding, particularly the reimbursement rates for providers of services. There's a fear, and it's a well-justified fear. In fact, it's a fact that we are losing service providers for children with special needs on a regular basis because they simply cannot make an affordable living doing what they will love to do. And so we had quite a few speakers talking about that and talking about stories important to them. And in fact, now we have a waiting list of children who are approved for services of over 100 who are not getting services currently because there's no one available to give them to them. There was a lot of emotional testimony, and to be honest, it was really tough to sit there and listen to how the state and the county are failing them. And the truth is, we are, and something needs to be done about that. Another major topic of conversation among the public speakers was quite a few Monroe County Sheriff Deputy retirees were there speaking about how they no longer have the health insurance that they feel their contract entitled them to. The contract language is pretty clear, but they are not receiving those benefits as they expected. And it's not just the sheriff's deputies, retirees, it's other retirees as well. And they are very concerned about that, and rightfully so. And finally, there were quite a few youth speakers there. They were talking about the need for environmental action, specifically the need for the county to form a climate advisory board. In fact, they had presented a petition to the administration for about 3,000 signatures of Monroe County residents to that end. Unfortunately, they were disappointed in that request. We had a referral put forth by legislator Justin Wilcox, who also represents parts of Brighton, that was rejected by the legislature president on what I understand is a technicality. It's unfortunate that we could not correct whatever that technicality was, but it was simply rejected and it is gone for this term. Legislator Wilcox also submitted a referral to create a special committee, I'm going to read this, to investigate Child Protective Services and the termination of the Family Assessment Response Program. It too was rejected by President Carbone. And this is particularly troubling because what the referral called for was simply to form a committee to investigate what's going on. There has been, if you pay attention over the years, back in 2008, there's a case of a 14-month-old who was found murdered. At the time, New York State investigators found that the Department of Human Services did not provide adequate monitoring for that child, and they required corrective action at that time. A decade later, we all know about the tragic case of Brooke Staples. She was murdered in November of 2016, and that highlighted the excessive caseload of the CPS staff and they work under, and this has not changed. And tragically, in 2018, there was another death of a 7-year-old who was also murdered, and now the reports have surfaced. We don't know if it's particularly true or not, but it's been stated that this may have been involved with Monroe County's FAR program, and as a result, well, I shouldn't say as a result, but at the same time, New York State froze Monroe County's FAR program by prohibiting the intake of any new cases, so there may indeed be a connection there. This is a challenge. It's something we need to look into. Most importantly, it's just recently come to our attention that the latest annual cumulative child fatality report, which reports data for the year after Brooks' death, so the year after that, Monroe County had one of the largest percentages of growth in New York State, with nearly 100% increase in child fatalities. Only Kings County, only one county, has a larger number of deaths, and they are the largest county by population in the state. Only they had more than us, and something's inherently wrong with that. We do need to investigate this, and if it's not going to happen this month, maybe it'll happen next year, but I feel very strongly that this is something that needs to be addressed. Something that did get passed last night, 2 nights ago, we did approve a contract with Freed Maxic Incorporated, and they are a company that collects unpaid bills in the medical realm. So if you have a hospital bill that doesn't go paid for, isn't collected on for over 180 days, and the process goes cold, they have a certain skill set that you can collect on those funds. And we learned during Ways and Means 2 weeks ago that there was actually an explosion of unpaid debts for Monroe Community Hospital. And this is a challenge because, as you may know, the medical system is facing a lot of challenges in terms of paying their bills and providing services at the same time. And so when you have delays in payments, that can cause severe shortages of ready flow cash. So we discovered that while the county hospital typically has an outstanding debt of about maybe $2.5 million on an annual basis that is not paid out on a timely fashion and oftentimes is not collected. Over the course of 2017 and 2018, it ballooned to $3.9 million. And at that time, they decided they were going to get some help and bring in another company. They didn't tell anyone about this. When this came through to the referral, it simply stated that we want to hire this firm to acquire the additional out-of-state uncollected cash contributions, and that's a problem. We did ask why this occurred, and we found out a number of things, and this is important. It's due to personnel turnover. They couldn't identify how much, but personnel turnover, and that's fair. The manager of the billing unit was out on leave for a 10-month period of time. Again, that's fair. Things happen, you can't do much about that. But also because, and the primary reason they say was because of the implementation of a new electronic management system, so how they would collect and track the funds. And that's something they should have been able to plan for. And whether they did or did not plan for it, they did not plan adequately. And so there was a challenge there. And then we also learned that the advisory board that's supposed to meet 6 times a year, according to county charter, has not met since November of 2018, and they met in the night of the county legislature. So 2 nights ago, they met again for the first time in about 11 months, and they should have been meeting 6 times over the course of the year. And the purpose of that special meeting was to confirm a new president or new chair. They apparently had not had a chair since January of 2019, and they have not met in that period of time. And that was a lack of oversight. I mean, there was clearly no one looking, and that is also a challenge. Now, so while we're appalled that this happened, and this is significant, that's a lot of money, we approved, Republicans and Democrats alike approved this contract because that was the only responsible thing to do. Their expectation is that they're going to be able to get back based on prior performance, about 33% of what's been not collected. And that's, could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but even so, that means you're going to get back about $1.3 million. So that was a responsible thing to do, to have that contract filled to get that $1.3 million. But it does mean $2.6 million is gone, give or take, maybe $100,000 perhaps. And that's something that we find also, to be something that we should never have gotten to that position in the first place and hopefully never will again. And next month, I was looking at the referral packet for next month, and there are a grand total of 11 referrals, which if you know anything about county government, that's tiny. 11 referrals for a budget of over $1 billion, that's it. And of which, only 3 of them were not for accepting grants. Only 3. And it's bewildering to me that I have no more to report to you beyond that what we're not doing. And so that's what I have to report to you. Apparently, in this upcoming month, we are not going to be doing too much because there's only 3 referrals for the entire legislature to consider that is not accepting a grant. And as you know, if someone's giving you a grant, the vote is pretty simple. You say, yes, thank you. So that's my report. I did feel important because these are a number of important issues and they're pertinent, not going away. And hopefully, we will address them in the future, but we have not addressed them yet. Any questions?
Thank you, Josh. Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you for coming, and as I've said before, I appreciate that you do take it upon yourself to come in and report the activities of the legislature here at Town Board. It's appreciated, and obviously with our cable access and streaming coverage, it gives the people of the community the opportunity, as well as us, to get an up-to-the-minute update on county government.
And,
Very helpful.
And I must say, I like coming here because I know on your agenda you have your first budget hearing. That's exciting news. You're going to have a budget hearing and another budget hearing, and then you're going to vote on the budget all prior to Election Day. We might have a budget hearing just before Election Day, maybe. We don't know for a fact because we just don't know. But this is a great example of open governance and a willingness to do things with pride.
We think
we're gonna
that's
do things with
important.
pride. I agree. Thank you all. I appreciate your time, and
Thank you, Josh.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during our open forum? Hearing none, then we will continue on with the business agenda. Can I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Tonight, we have 2 public hearings. They do both relate to the budget. And as we always say, although one is technically entitled the Proposed Supervisors 2020 Preliminary Operating and Capital Improvement Budgets, and one is entitled Proposed 2020 Assessment Rolls for Service Charges, Maintenance Charges, Capital Improvement, and Sewer Rent Charges for Special Improvement Districts within the town, they really are both budget related. No one should feel like they have to guess which hearing is the right hearing to speak in. Your comments will be included in the record either way. We are going to start first, however, with a presentation by Paula Parker, our Director of Finance, and I want to acknowledge her work as well as the work of our Assistant Finance Director, Suzanne Zaso, who every year, this time of year, and really for several months, really put in concerted effort working with all of our department heads to make sure we have a budget to present to the community, to give the opportunity to our residents to review it and give us their thoughts. So, Paula, go ahead. We will step down out into the audience so we can see the presentation up on the screen.
Well, here we are again. It's that time of year. I like to love this time of year. It's the fall. It's time for budget. So we're going to take a look at the 2020 preliminary budget. And I'm going to be going through some charts and graphs, explaining where we are, where our funding is coming from, and how we're going to be spending it. But before I do that, I really wanted to take a moment and thank Suzanne Zazo, the Assistant Director of Finance, my Operations Director as well, Amy Banker, the accountant that works in the Finance Department, and Anna Bowles, our Senior Payroll Clerk, for all of their work in putting the budget books together, get everything posted on the website, and for all their work, especially this cover page that we're looking at now. Suzanne is the artist in the group, and she did put this together, and it's quite nice. And also, before we get started, I also want to take just a second to thank Supervisor Maley and my board members, the Budget Review Task Force, because if not for their guidance and support, we wouldn't have a solid direction to go into, and we wouldn't be probably where we are today. So thank you again for your assistance in this process. I also want to thank the department heads. Every year, the department heads go through a process where they scrutinize, sometimes painfully, their budgets. They work with me to reduce the expense lines that we feel need to be reduced where appropriate, and we look at revenues and increase them as appropriate as possible. I know that's not an easy process for the department heads, and I really do appreciate the hard work that they put into this process as well. So let's get started. Yeah, Mike, I might need you. Okay, thanks. Okay. So I want to take just a minute, let's review some of the services that the town provides. This is not an exhaustive list, but it does give everybody an idea of how hard our departments work and the services that they do provide to the community. So we have our police department and court system. We have 40 full-time and 5 part-time sworn professional dedicated officers. We have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week operation. Our services include emergency response, road patrol, criminal investigations, crime prevention, youth programs, animal control, school crossing guards, court security, and we do have our community outreach programs as well. In 2018, there was 50,309 calls for service, which was up 6% from 2017, and we forecast to be staying in that ballpark of 50,000 calls again for 2019. There were 511 criminal arrests made in 2018, and we're forecasting to have that up up to 619. As part of the Community Engagement Initiative, there were a total of 90 community presentations made in 2018. And the courts completed 8,336 cases in 2018. Now we'll take a look at highway and sewer. So we are maintaining 194 lane miles of roads, 83 miles of storm sewers, 41 miles of concrete gutters, 38 miles of curbing, and approximately 1,700 roadsides in the town. Repaving and surface treatment of approximately 17.8 miles of roadways, installation and replacement of 647 square yards of gutters, and 1,045 linear feet of storm sewers were all replaced in 2018. Snow and ice control on 318 lane miles of roads during inclement weather for our traffic safety. Wow, 318 miles, it's like from here to Ohio somewhere. Yeah, it's a lot of miles. Curbside brush and leaf pickup townwide from April to October, including the processing that takes place at the landfill, 36,000, almost 37,000 cubic yards of brush and 18,560 cubic yards of leaves collected and processed in 2018. In 2018, we removed 30 trees. We replanted 36 trees. 74 tree hazards were trimmed. And we're planning an increase in the budget for 2020 to treat the emerald ash borer treatment for those trees. The Brighton Memorial Library, we just saw the proclamation and learned a little bit about the Friends, but our library provides a wide array of information, including books, multimedia, internet access, online reference tools. Community resources include computer classes, Partners in Reading program for seniors, tutoring and study rooms, Friends of the Library bookstore, Brighton Kiwanis Discovery Room for children, and the Alice Wilson Low Vision Technology Room. We had over 45,000 patron visits to the library in 2018, with 256,000, over that actually, visits estimated for the current year, 2019. We had 2,062 active library programs in 2018, with just a couple more planned in 2019. The Brighton Memorial Library remains the second highest circulating public library in Monroe County. Now we're going to take a look at parks and recreation and community programs. We have 7 parks and various recreation areas encompassing over 563 acres, which includes the purchase in 2018 of the 26 acres of the parkland on Westfall Road. Recreation facilities are including 8 playgrounds, 2 lodges, pavilions, indoor and outdoor pool facilities, 8 soccer fields, 7 baseball, softball fields, 4 tennis courts, 2 basketball courts, 2 pickleball courts, and picnic facilities. There are over 17 miles of walking trails with the addition of the almost completed Highland Crossing Trail, which will be done, I believe, this fall. Activities and classes year-round for all age groups, 263 programs with 672 sessions were offered in 2018. And we have our community garden, our farmers market, and our Veterans Memorial Park as well. Our general government services include fire marshal, which will ensure compliance with fire and building codes. Public Works reviews construction projects for conformity with the town's comprehensive plan, zoning and community development goals. Public Works also plans new town infrastructure and development projects, like the Highland Crossing Trail, the Monroe Avenue Green Innovation Project, the streetscapes improvements, pedestrian and bicycle plan implementations as well. And that's just to name a few things. As you well know, we cable broadcast of our town public meetings. We have a town clerk's department that provides wonderful services, including marriage licenses, passports. They conduct elections. They also collect all the property taxes. The town historian collects, organizes, and preserves all the town historical records. And our assessor maintains property valuation records for all town parcels. Okay, now we're going to get to the meat of everything. So for 2020, we are looking at our 3 major funds on this slide: general fund, highway fund, and library fund. Going across the general fund, we're having authorized appropriations of $18,393,000. We're estimating revenues to be at $8,351,000. We're going to be using some reserve dollars, $10,000 for our streetscapes program and $75,000 to offset some workers' comp premiums. And we're going to use some regular generic vanilla fund balance of $865,000, bringing the amount to be raised in taxes to $9,091,905. The highway fund, using, going across the same part of the chart here, authorized appropriations of $5,685,000, estimated revenues at $1,100,000. We're going to be using fund balance of $430,000, and we'll be raising property taxes to $4,145,690. Our library fund authorized appropriations are just under $2.2 million. Estimated revenues at $115,000. Appropriated fund balance, 65,000, bringing the amount to be raised in taxes just a whisker over $2 million. So when we look across on the 2020 line for all funds together, we're looking at authorized appropriations of $26,196,445,000. We're looking at the total revenues of $9,499,080. We're looking at appropriated fund balance of $1,445,000 for the taxes to be raised in those three major funds of $15,252,365. And I want to just call everybody's attention to the line below when we're looking at what we did the prior year in 2019. And the thing that I found interesting on this slide is that our revenues have actually gone down. So last year we had projected revenues of $9,500,000. This year we're under that amount by about $32,000. Yeah, that's something we had to deal with as well. So we had declining revenues. If we look at the assessment, and I want everybody to just take a look at this because a little bit later on we'll talk about this. Our town assessed value, and this is going to be the taxable assessed value of property in the town, did actually go up. It went up by about $8 million, $8.5 million, or a little over 1/4%. So I want you to keep that in mind later on when we talk about the tax cap. So what does that mean for you in your tax rate? What that means in the tax rate is we're going to see an increase. We're going to see an increase of about 7.5 cents, bringing our tax rate from $4.96 up 7.5 cents to about $5 and almost 4 cents per thousand. And that's going to be about 1.5% increase. This slide is just going to bring everything in totality over. Again, the top line, looking at the 2020 operating funds, they're reflective of all the numbers I just went through. The special districts are going to be coming in with authorized appropriations at $5,490,000. We're going to see some estimated revenues in those special districts of $175,000 and change. We're going to use some appropriated fund balance, $157,600. So the amount to be raised in taxes for the special districts is $5,157,510. So when we add all the operations of the town together, we're looking at spending about $31.7 million, just under that. We're going to bring in revenues of almost $9.7 million. We're going to be using reserve and fund balances of $1.6 million. So here's the number we're looking at. We're going to be raising $20,409,875 in property taxes next year. Comparing that to what we raised in the previous year, and again, we can see these revenues, because the other revenues went down here, but we can see that compared to what we did in 2019, we're looking at raising $448,220 altogether. And that's 2.25%. And then we're going to show now next how that all falls into the tax cap. So the tax cap calculation isn't really a simple calculation. There's a lot that goes into the workings of this calculation, as set forth by the state. So the first thing we do in the tax cap calculation is we look at what we did in the prior year. So in the prior year, we raised $19,961,655. And here's that growth factor. Remember on the previous slide where I showed that our growth in the town went up a little bit, like 8.5 million? We showed that, about 1/4%, remember? What the state said is you had no growth, zero growth. So we don't get to add into our tax cap any property tax growth. These numbers are set by the state of New York, and it's something that we do have to live by and we can't challenge. So according to the state, we don't get any increase for our growth in our tax base. Now, to that number, we add in our pilots that we collected in the current year in 2019. We take that total and we multiply it by the 2%, or 1.02. And that gives us about 20 million, almost 20,900,000. However, from that, we have to subtract out the 526,000 here. We get to add in the carryover from the previous year, and that would be from 2019. We were $74,875 under our tax cap in 2019. We get to utilize those funds in 20. So our total 2020 tax levy limit to be within the cap is going to be a total raised of $20,414,885. So that increase is showing the 453,230. The percentage increase is 2.27. Broken down again by our operating funds and our special districts. And the town will be raising a total of $20,409,875. We are $5,010 under our tax cap for 2020. So we managed to do that. And when we take a look at where our dollars come from, where do they come from? Well, as we just saw, the biggest portion of our dollars come from our real property tax. And again, we're focusing on our 3 operating budgets here. So the 14 million, and adding pilots to that, of course, and then also in this category would be any late fees on property tax payments for 60.8%, or just over 15 million. The next highest source of revenue is going to be our distributed sales tax. We went up very modestly for sales tax in 2020. We went up 2%, or 85,000. We went from 4,250,000 to 4,335,000. Departmental income is just under 7%, coming in at almost 1.8 million. Appropriated fund balance, we're going to be looking at 1,360,000, or 5.2%. Our mortgage tax, we have also increased by about 3%, taking that from 895,000 in 2019 to 925,000 for 2020. Governmental charges make up 2.2% of the budget at just under 600,000. All other revenues, again, just under 2% at just over 500,000. Our New York State aid coming in at 540,000, again, 2.1%. And then our appropriated reserve funds, our federal aid, and interest income together are, we're looking at it, but just under 1% of our revenues. So let's take a look at sales tax historically. I've gone back to 2009 on this slide, where we were collecting about 1.9 million. Looking at the graph, which this is a really nice graph, I like this graph. This shows over an average of from 2010 to 2018, we've had some really nice growth in sales tax on average. So we've seen that growth at about 8.61%. In the current year, we've projected 4,250,000, and our first 2 payments were just under 50%, and they're the 2 lowest payments that the town collects in the year. We've got 2 more payments to go, and those 2 payments have historically been very much higher than the first 2 of the year. So I'm very optimistic that we'll not only collect what we budgeted for the current year, but I'm hopeful that we'll go maybe just a little bit over our budget. So when we look at that average growth from 2010 to 2018, we are certainly justified in increasing modestly by that 2% for next year, increasing the sales tax by 85,000, going up to 4,335,000. Now this graph is a little bit messy. So looking at the green line, that's what we budget. This is mortgage tax. Volatile, wonderful mortgage tax. So we try our best every year to budget it, but there's so many different working parts in mortgage tax. How many houses are going to sell? How many mortgages are people going to get? What's the mortgage tax going to be? Many, many things go into the calculation of these numbers that the town sees as revenue. So what's been happening in mortgage tax is the one thing I can tell you is it's really, really difficult to predict. So we were up as high as 1.5 million, and that was back in 2003. And then recently, we've had some dips. I know at the end of 2018, we fell below budget. We predicted somewhere around 900,000 that we would collect, and we ended up only collecting about 733,000. So we did fall short that year on mortgage tax, but we did well in sales tax, so we made up for it. In the current year, we've got budgeted 895,000. The first payments come in. We are at 51% of that number. And again, when we see our second payment, it'll be later in the year. We've gone through the warm weather, the highest sales season, so we should see that number actually hit our target and most likely go over that target. So with that in mind, we're going to take our best guess for 2020, and we're going to increase that number slightly by about 30,000, and we're going to go up to 925,000 for mortgage tax next year. So now we know where the money comes from. Let's talk about how we spend it. So what we've got in wages and benefits is it's actually over 19 million. It's 75% of our total budget is for wages and benefits for our employees. Now, that's not surprising at all, considering we are in the business of providing services. Most of those services are done by people, so it would make sense that those are the two biggest pieces of our budget as far as our appropriations by type. Next, it's going to be followed by supplies and materials, 8.6%, just over 2.2 million. Contractual services, we're going to look at 7%, 1.8 million for those. Our debt service is over $1 million. That includes principal and interest on all the debt the town issues. 2.5% on equipment and capital outlay that is funded by cash through the budget. If we borrow for any pieces of equipment, we'll see that those expenses would again appear in our debt service line. Utilities and telephone are going to bring up 1.5%, or just under 400,000. Insurance and risk management, 420,000 at 1.6%. And this year we don't have any interfund transfers, so that's going to be showing at zero. So those are the breakdowns of actually how we appropriate by the expenditure type. Now we're going to look at the programs in the budget. What departments are we spending the money on? So of course, most expensive is the police department, coming in at 8.8 million for 2020, 33.6% of everything we do. So it's a large piece of the pie. Next, the next biggest piece is our highway operations, and they're coming in at 26.8%, or just over 7 million. Public Works, 2.3 million, or 8.8%. Our Brighton Memorial Library is just behind there at just under 2.2 million, or 8.4%. General government support, things like the finance office, the assessor's office, different general services that we provide is coming in at just under 2 million, at 7.4%. Our parks, at almost 1.3 million, just under 5%. Recreation is at 4.5%, just under 1.2 million. Our town justices are coming in at 540,000, 2.1% of our budget. The town clerk and the services they provide are coming in at 491,000, at 1.9%. And our supervisor and council, town board, coming in at 1.6%, 432,000 in round numbers. So let's take a look at some of the pieces of equipment and some of the projects we have planned for next year. So our sewer district is going to be doing and continuing to do their relining program. We're going to be spending $291,000 on that project. And again, we've increased that about 2% going forward into next year. We're going to buy a new pickup truck for the sewer department at $38,574. We're going to do some work on sidewalks. Of course, we're going to continue that project, increasing again about 2% expenses. We're going to try to do 15,000 square feet. We're going to spend 152,000, and we're going to, of that, we're going to take 10,000 from our fund balance. Our ambulance district, we're going to be making a contribution of 70,000 for the purchase of ambulances as we do each year. That's down just a little bit. For information systems, we're going to be replacing servers, computers, and network disaster recovery equipment for 68,000. Police vehicles, we plan on buying 3 hybrids next year. We'll be doing body camera replacement and data storage projects. And we're going to also be buying vests for our officers. We're looking at spending about $242,000 for those items, and we're going to be receiving approximately $19,000 in grants for the vest replacement program. Recreation and Parks, we're looking at continuing on the Farmers Market Barn rehab. We're going to be buying a vehicle for the parks, and we're also going to be buying a gator. We're going to spend $546,000. We're going to be getting $500,000 in grants to offset the Farmers Market rehab project, and we're going to be borrowing $36,000 for replacement of the vehicles, of just the one vehicle, the vehicle here. For facilities, we're looking at engineering a library roof. It's time to replace the library roof, and we're going to have some help designing it and engineering it and making sure that's done well. So we've got $22,000 that we'll be utilizing from fund balance to do that project and get that done. So all in all, we're going to be spending $878,000 on those projects. Highway and Public Works. We've got a lot of vehicles we're going to be replacing next year. We've got 2 large snowplow type trucks. We've got a pickup truck and a loader. So we're looking, again, here at spending about almost $624,000, and we are planning to borrow for those purchases. They are large purchases. It does make sense to do some debt service on them. Our road programs, we're going to continue our repaving, resurfacing, storm sewers, gutters, and town sidewalks, much like we've done in recent years. We've increased most of those numbers by the 2%. We are going to also be reconstructing one road in there. And we're going to be spending almost $1.3 million. We've got about $545,000 in grants to offset that, grants and aid. And so that means we're going to be borrowing the $253,000 here, and that is specifically going to be slated towards the road reconstruction. Planning and other, we are looking at bike implementation plan for $10,000. The Multiversity Trail, we've got some cash match money budgeted for a grant that we've actually applied for. And the GIGP continuing maintenance on that project is also being planned. So we've got $78,545 planned for those projects, with $10,000 coming from the reserves. The forestry management did take a significant increase in 2020, and that's because we're going to be doing the treatment for the emerald ash borer. We do that every 3 years, so that's increased a little bit for next year. And those are all of our projects, and thank you for your attention. It's been wonderful to present to you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Well, I can tell you, Paula, I did enjoy it, especially the part about staying under the tax cap. I want to again extend appreciation to you, to Suzanne, your entire finance department team, and really to all of our department heads. We looked real hard at what you submitted to us. The scars are still apparent on some of you. My favorite word this past summer and early fall was spelled C-U-T. All of you got to know that word very well. And of course, we don't do that, to be difficult. We do that really in an effort, and I know you participate with us in prioritizing your needs and prioritizing the ways in which we can provide services to the community so that we can enhance the quality of life while always remaining cognizant of how important it is to maintain and preserve the fiscal integrity of the town. Our fiscal stress rating from the state comptroller, which again this year has come in at a very, very favorable level. Our Moody's indebtedness rating, which again has remained at AA2, a very high level of credit worthiness. All of those factors are important, not just for the sake of, saying, hey, we're fiscally strong, but it helps us as we do need to borrow. It does help us as we look, and a lot of economists out there are warning about a potential recession coming in the year or so ahead. We saw in the last recessionary cycle, in the Great Recession, how severely towns across the state, including the town of Brighton, were hit. We want to be at all times prepared should the economic conditions be not as good as they are today. And I really just can't say enough about not only that presentation, but the work you've done in getting the budget to that point again this year, and thank you for that. I now, as we said, we have two public hearings. So the first one on the proposed supervisor 2020 preliminary operating and capital improvement budgets. I'll ask the town clerk, Dan, has the necessary legal notice been given to hold this public hearing?
We have supervisor. Apologies. The September 26th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you very much. And I declare, in that case, I declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on the proposed 2020 preliminary operating and capital improvement budgets? I would note that, as we do each year, the state law requires that we hold one public hearing. County Legislator Baroth noted, as we try to do, that each year we hold our budget and approve our budget before elections are held, and we hold two public hearings rather than just one. During my budget message last week, I talked about all of the other opportunities, whether it was the town board budget workshops where each department head presented their budget, whether it was the finance committee meetings where the budget was presented and reviewed. But ultimately, state law requires that we hold at least one hearing on the budget itself, and we hold two. So we will hold a second public hearing on Wednesday, October 23rd, but I declare that tonight's October 10th public hearing on the 2020 preliminary operating and capital improvement budget to be closed. But I will open the second and related budget. But first, I'll again ask our town clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given on the public hearing for the proposed 2020 assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts?
Yes, Supervisor, that was also in the September 26th edition of the Post.
Thank you. And I would also note that on that budget, we have for many years been following the directive of the New York State Court of Appeals and providing additional notice of that hearing in our quarterly quarterly newsletter for the fall edition, which is mailed to all residences to satisfy the provisions of that Court of Appeals decision. And with that legal notice having been given, I declare that the public hearing on the proposed 2020 assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts within the town is now open. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on any of those? And really that relates, as the finance director noted, the special district budgets and related budgets. These are charges that relate to specific items of service like sewage, like refuse, like sidewalk snow removal, various items that are services provided through capital improvement budgets. So is there anyone that would like to address that public hearing this evening? Again, we will hold a second public hearing on this matter on October 23rd. But since I see no one looking to address the board on this public hearing, I declare that the public hearing on the proposed 2020 assessment rolls for service charges, maintenance charges, capital improvements, and sewer rent charges for special improvement districts is closed. And we'll look forward to that second hearing on the 23rd. Thank you. Communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file communications?
So moved.
Second.
Well, we got one of those letters we never like to get. Part of it we like, because we've got some great employees, and some of them, like Ernie, have worked for us for a long, long time. Ernie, you deserve. You've worked and worked, cold nights, days, always for the service of the people of the town. It says here Ernest, but we all know him as Ernie. Ernie Heinsbergen from our highway department has submitted his retirement letter, and we're going to miss you. Mike, anything you want to say about Ernie?
Oh, I think Bill just, he's been here since 1982. And he's our longest, or lasting employee. He will be missed. There's a lot of legacy data there and a lot of legacy information that we're going to try to get from Ernie.
Pick his brain, pump his brain.
As best we can, because there's just a lot there, but he will certainly be missed. He's done a great job of it.
He's just a presence around the highway department.
Yep.
He really is. His last day will be October 30th. So I hope everybody gets a chance to wish him well. And I know we're gonna miss you, but we also we're always happy when someone finally gets an opportunity to retire, and I hope Ernie will really enjoy some time off, especially in the winter.
That was his goal.
He got out before another winter.
That was Ernie's.
It's not going to snow before October 30th. So Ernie, we're gonna let you go. And sticking with the highway department theme, Judith Prevertil on Audley Way sent in a very nice postcard, actually, thanking for picking up some debris, some tree debris at her home, but really in general for keeping the streets clean. And we always appreciate those notes. I wish we had even more, because our highway department workers, there's no more visible group of workers. They're out there, particularly as we get into the leaf season and the snow season. We're grateful for that work, and we're glad when anybody appreciates them. So, Mike, I hope you'll share with the department that yet another Brighton resident thinks they're doing a great job. Can I have a motion to receive and file those?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
We already
You already have
we
it.
did already.
Yeah.
We did, right? I was going to say, as I'm saying that, I said, wait a second.
Robin and
Mike's
Jason.
done this. Did I get do it?
Robin and
Okay.
Jason.
All right, good. Then, never mind. Any discussion on those? Better to do it twice than not at all. Hearing no discussion, can I have a motion? No, we're not going to motion. Dan, take a vote. Get me out of here.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner. Aye. Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye, maybe I enjoyed that that budget presentation too much.
You want to do it again, don't you?
Aw. All right, I'll shut up and let our board members give their committee reports. Robin, Community Services, help me out here.
Thank you, Bill. The Community Services Committee has not met in the intervening time since our last board meeting, but I do just want to announce some upcoming events. This weekend is the semi-annual Electronics Recycling and Document Shredding event. That will be at the Brighton Highway Department, 1941 Elmwood Avenue, on Saturday, October 12th, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And I've been getting a lot of interest and calls about that. And I will say that we are accepting those cathode ray tube, the CRT monitors this time. So if you have those in your garage or basement somewhere tucked away, you can bring those this weekend. So this
The
is
flat screen ones, you
no,
say?
these are
Oh,
the ones with the big
old
backs,
ones.
the big
Okay.
old ones. Some, this recycling market is it's fickle, and so right now, Maven Technologies is accepting those, so you can bring those this weekend.
Both TV monitors and computer monitors
is
of that
correct.
old style, all right.
That is correct. So this is a rare opportunity. So,
But not the flat screens.
but we are expecting the flat screens as well.
boy.
so it's
We're
a
gonna really be
bonanza.
cleaning
It's a
out,
bonanza. So we hope to see you this weekend. In addition to that, we have our sensory-friendly trick-or-treating on Friday, October 18th, from 4 to 5 p.m. at the Brighton Town Hall lobby. And on Saturday, October 19th, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., right here at the Brighton Town Hall campus and the Brighton Memorial Library, we will have our annual Fall Festival. And we hope to see our regular friends and visitors there.
I know my good friend Farmer Bill's going to be there.
Well, we can't wait to see him. Then on Friday, October 25th, from 5 to 6 p.m., we will have our Halloween Happy House. That's at the Buckland Farmhouse, 1341 Westfall Road. And then a little later that evening of Friday, October 25th, we will have the Haunted Grounds at the Buckland Farmhouse. Finally, our last event in October will be our semi-annual Drug Enforcement Agency Pharmaceutical Take-Back event hosted in our Public Safety Wing by our Brighton Police Department. And that is right here, 2300 Elmwood Avenue. That will be on Saturday, October 26th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our next convening of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, October 16th, next week, at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside Recreation Center, 220 Idlewood Road.
Thanks, Robin. Jason, Finance.
Yes, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Wednesday, October 2nd. Each of the items that were discussed in committee appear on tonight's agenda. We did also have some discussion items. The first discussion regarding potential dates for the two Public Service Commission required within 60-day public outreach meetings for the Community Choice Aggregation Program. Two representatives from Rocktricity discussed the coordination and scheduling of two public outreach meetings to inform and educate our community regarding the CCA and the process and timeline for implementation of the Community Choice Aggregation and Community Distributed Generation electricity purchase programs. The supervisor has requested 3 meetings. The meetings will be held on the east and west side of Brighton and one at Town Hall. And these meetings are planned to be scheduled sometime this fall. Also discussed was the process for customer service calls that will be referred to Rocktricity/Jewel. Also, we did have a gentleman from a member of the public who came and addressed the committee to discuss the possibility of a territory acknowledgement statement being recited before various town meetings. Our next Finance and Administrative Services Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 15th. We meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the Stage Conference Room here at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks very much, Jason. Public Safety, Christine.
So Public Safety met on Tuesday, October 8th, just 2 days ago. The various units reported out. Brighton Ambulance has received 570 calls in the past month. Call coverage by Brighton Volunteer Ambulance units is 95%, and the volume is up over 6% from this time last year. However, they did note that it has been a slower month, just the month itself, and slower is better.
Yes, it is.
Let's see, Brighton Fire Department, the only call of significance was a relatively minor structure fire on Hibiscus Drive, no injuries, thankfully. And they report that the open house was well attended by community members, and they are appreciative of the participation of Brighton Volunteer Ambulance and Brighton Police in that open house. Public Works reports that the Havens Road reconstruction is completed. The State Highway Department work on the Elmwood Avenue Bridge night work should be completed shortly. And the paving on Sylvan should begin next week. Sylvia, I'm sorry, should begin next week. That is correct?
Sylvia's actually going to be paved today.
Paved today?
Yep,
Wonderful.
jumped ahead a little bit there.
All righty. Brighton Police Department was very pleased to announce about the new traffic enforcement officer. The position was implemented recently, and to date, 166 tickets have been issued through traffic and speed enforcement efforts. This is significant. The community has been seeking greater attention to traffic enforcement, and we have an officer who is quite adept at ensuring that drivers are being safe and mindful of their driving habits. Brighton Police noted that at East Avenue at Landing Road, there's an increase in traffic, possibly due to recent road work in the area. And we see traffic functioning much like water. The more pressure in one area pushes traffic off into another area. Rochester Fire Department, focused on West Brighton, noted that there were 551 calls year to date and 97 calls in September. In old business, we continue to work on an audit of the school's speed limits, speed zones in, throughout town. We are reviewing the town staff's school zones and speed limit signage postings and working on a plan to address changes that the New York State school zone law permits us to extend signage distances for the posting of speed limits. We're looking to be consistent in our posting. That gives us a great deal of coverage and control over safety for students walking to schools throughout the town. And last item on the agenda was a traffic study to be implemented on South Winton Road at the Brighton High School bus loop. Commissioner Guyon will be discussing with the Monroe County Department of Transportation correction of faded signage that regulates parking near the entrance, or I'm sorry, the exit of the bus loop, where sightlines are obstructed for drivers trying to exit onto Winton Road during the heavy drop-off and pickup periods at the school. We will review those concerns further and we'll report back in November for ideas and solutions. The next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be Tuesday, November 12th in the lower level meeting room at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the public is always encouraged to attend.
Thanks very much, Christine. Chris, Public Works.
Public Works met this past Tuesday, October the 8th, and we started with a very active open forum where we discussed the no parking signs recently approved and installed on Orchard Drive, which will remain in place. The Green Light Company that has this alternative internet service came in with 4 different employees with different responsibilities and made a presentation to review the installations in the town and discuss obstacles preventing service to particular areas, but went through their general approval process of how they install their service at various locations throughout the town. My guess is they cover about half the town at this point. The location of the easements that are obtained are specific and generally determined by the location of overhead lines, and other obstacles to installation might include insufficient interest by homeowners and the lack of overhead infrastructure. A resident of Roby Drive had come in along with another resident previously, indicating that while most of the area in his neighborhood was served by Green Light, they noted they did not have a service and they very much wanted it. So this precipitated or prompted us to invite Green Light in to talk about their process in general. Also, we discussed the stop sign at Shaftesbury and Clover Street intersection, where a resident from Shaftesbury Road expressed concern regarding the intersection, which is a triangle there. And we're looking at different configurations of what is a complex number of roads coming in, or a complex intersection as a result. And the DPW will review the sign configurations to best control the intersection. But also, we talked about the speed limit in that area, which was still at, I believe, is it 30 at that point,
Right.
Mike? But seemed appropriate that we might reduce speed limit to 25, as is quite common in other neighborhoods. So that's under discussion as well.
I think actually we came out deciding we wanted to make that recommendation, and I think probably at our next meeting, we'll have that on the agenda to set a public hearing to
Right.
reduce the speed limits on those streets.
Correct. Next, we discussed the bids being let for the refuse districts, which will be advertised on October the 9th yesterday, and we hope to receive bids by the October 24th deadline at 10 o'clock a.m. And that's for all the refuse districts that we have in town for refuse removal contracts. There was also discussion of the Linden Oaks paving project. There, the owner of the Linden Oaks office complex had advised the town that in collaboration with the town of Pittsford, he would like to mill and repave the portion of Linden Oaks, both in Pittsford and in Brighton, and have a consistent road service. The town does have a dedicated road there, but the Linden Oaks office complex owner indicated that they would repave that stretch at no cost to Brighton. The town's agreeable and have authorized the work to be conducted at night to avoid interrupting the rush hour traffic there in a very busy stretch of road. The milling will begin in Brighton on October 8th. Has it already begun now, Mike?
Then to start Tuesday night.
At approximately 6 o'clock p.m. And it'll continue on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and be completed by Saturday morning.
At the latest.
We also discussed the status of the Bike Walk Brighton and the comprehensive plan and the projects that have been completed with respect to walking and biking in the town of Brighton. And Commissioner Guyon presented a very impressive list of the projects that have either been completed or will be completed under current projects. And they go on at great length, from the Brickyard Trail, Highland Crossing, Auburn Trail, Highland to Town Hall, Highland to the canal via Edgewood, Elmwood, Clinton, Rudeville, Lockdeville, West Tornado Side Rocks. It goes on for another dozen projects that have been completed. We're really working extremely hard, and Mike's department is to be complimented on what we've been able to accomplish in connecting areas of our town, which will make it more and more walkable and bikeable. And thanks for putting this list together, Mike. It's quite impressive. We also discussed the Penn Arrow Road Refuse District proposal. We've received an inquiry regarding the formation of a refuse district for Penn Arrow, and this district will present an opportunity to establish the town's first composting district, and we're going to research the opportunity for starting as a trial project, what kind of interest we see of residents there as well. We looked at another 5 significant trees that appear to be need to be removed and replaced, and also got the same 2019 paving update that Christine reported on as well. The next Public Works Committee meeting will be November 5th at 9 o'clock a.m., and residents are encouraged to attend.
Thanks very much, Chris. Long report, long meeting, but a lot of information.
We tried to
Lot
break
going
the
on.
community services record, but
And I really want to, you talked about Greenlight, and I want to talk about Greenlight again a little bit more, because they did come in and meet with me before the meeting with the Public Works Committee. And I think we were very direct with them. There are these gaps in their service area, as I think most of us know. They now have a very well-known and very deep-pocketed investor, and they have ramped up their work in laying the fiber and other equipment necessary to provide service. It is a service that people are clamoring for. I get a lot of questions about Greenlight, but I particularly get questions where there are these holes in neighborhoods where some neighbors get service and others don't, and particularly out in West Brighton. I know their business model, and I understand it. They want to make sure there's enough interest first before they start designing and laying the infrastructure. So I want to encourage people to consider it, because we do want to get that fiber to the door, and we do want to be servicing people through Greenlight. But I want to call on Greenlight. I want to make sure Greenlight really does their job. They are in the nature of a utility, and until they're really servicing the whole town, we won't be getting, I don't want one neighbor to have a benefit that some other neighbor doesn't have. So we're going to stay after Greenlight. We're going to continue to have regular meetings, regular communication with them, follow up how they're doing getting into these neighborhoods, again, particularly looking at West Brighton, so that sooner rather than later, we can say that all of Brighton has access to the faster internet services that will be out there. So stay tuned for more on that. And as you said, they will be coming back in, I believe, to our December meeting on
That's great.
Public Works to report back on progress and answers that they made, particularly with respect to Roby. Okay, let's go then. We've had all our committee reports. Let's go to new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $343,214.04. Notable claims include to the Depository Trust Company in the amount of $124,043.76, representing annual principal and semi-annual interest for the debt service issued in 2015 for several projects, which included the roof and windows at the Ops Center and an HVAC project at the library. Also to Five Star Equipment Incorporated in the amount of $10,381.79 for the purchase of a variety of heavy-duty truck parts for town vehicles. Also to Mohawk Valley Community College in the amount of $6,079.53, representing payment for the one-person snowplow operators training course for which 6 of our employees attended. Also to Osborne Associates Incorporated in the amount of $6,553.50, representing purchase of a variety of sign-making materials for road and other signs. Also to Villager Construction Incorporated in the amount of $7,670, representing payment for paver rental for the Village Lane Road paving project. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Christine, handle the ambulance matter.
Yes. On the matter of authorizing a bid to award to Northeastern Rescue Vehicles of Syracuse, New York for the purchase of one ambulance in an amount not to exceed $84,750 and amend the budget to appropriate $9,750 from assigned unappropriated fund balance to the Emergency Response Vehicles account for said purchase. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Couple things I want to note on this item. First, as we've mentioned before, this is the oldest ambulance. However, we had expected that we would be replacing it next year rather than this year. But it just sort of ran out of time. And the repairs that were going to be needed to put it back to service, we couldn't, and the ambulance BVA couldn't justify making those repairs, knowing that the vehicle would be replaced next year. So we pushed it ahead a couple months, which pushed it into this year. The other thing is we have, the BVA has used ambulances manufactured, the Sprinter style, manufactured by Mercedes. Shortly before they were going to make a recommendation, they learned that because Amazon has been acquiring so many of these Sprinter vans that the vendor was not going to be able to promise service for a delivery for as much as 20 months. And this is a vehicle they really need now. So this vehicle will actually be a Ford Transit style vehicle, and this will give them an opportunity to see how that particular model works as an ambulance vehicle. And I might note that it is somewhat cheaper, so that's good news too. So,
And significantly cheaper than the unit that it's replacing.
absolutely, which
those were
which
well
was the
over
old
100,000.
style ones, which were much higher. So I
20,000, I
appreciate
think.
BVA, making these changes that make it less expensive, and by the way, significantly more fuel efficient to serve the community. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield for the provision of dental benefits for 2020. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this will be at no change for 2020 as compared to 2019. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Jason, why don't you do this
Sure,
last one?
The
as
next
well?
matter seeks authorization to submit an application for a 2019-2020 Justice Court Assistance Program grant for the removal and replacement of wallpaper in the courtrooms. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And got to get rid of the old wallpaper. And it's good to have the grant. That's this JCAP grant program is one that is regularly of assistance to the courts. Motion and a second made. Any further comments? If not, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Matters of the supervisor. Several things I want to note. First, we've got and Paula alluded to this in your budget presentation. We are head over heels excited that our next trail project, the Highland Crossing Trail, is nearing completion, and we will be cutting the ribbon on Brighton's newest trail, a joint intermunicipal trail project between the town of Brighton and the city of Rochester, predominantly funded through grants. And that ribbon cutting is going to be held on Friday, October 25th at 10 a.m. We're going to hold it right at the town line between Brighton and the city, right at the Brickstone Senior Community on Elmwood Avenue. We're hoping the weather's going to be nice so we can do it outdoors. If not, we will be doing it indoors. The Brickstone community has their regular coffee with their director on Friday morning, and this exciting event is going to be the coffee event that morning. So we know we're going to have a lot of residents from Brickstone who are very excited about this project. But this new trail, we've seen the impact that a 3/4 mile long trail, the Brickyard Trail, has had. This trail is 3 miles long. It will connect two important existing trails, the Erie Canal Trail and the Genesee River Trail. It will pass some important employers like Paychex, Empire State College. It'll go past the Brickstone community as it goes through Brighton. Then it will turn down Elmwood, head into the city, go north through Highland Park, through the Highland Park neighborhood, and then finally to the Genesee River Trail. With that route, it will be a path not only for recreational walking and biking, but also commuters. It's a great way to cut off some distance for people that are commuting downtown. It'll be a much safer way to get downtown. There's really no good way to commute by bicycle to downtown Rochester, or for that matter, to that end of the river campus. Now people will be able to use that, and only a short piece of it will be, Sharrow labeled on city streets. The rest of it will be a 10-foot wide multimodal trail, either concrete sidewalk or the same stone dust surface that we have at the Brickyard Trail, all ADA compliant. We know that residents of Brickstone have been out checking out the trail, taking some pictures there. So we're really excited. We want to invite everybody to come out and celebrate our newest trail, Highland Crossing Trail, October 25th, 10 a.m.
Should I bring my bike?
Absolutely, Chris. I'm bringing mine.
Should I wear Lycra?
Answer
I'll
that,
get
Paul.
back to you on that one, Chris. I thought we talked about that last time. There's an image I won't be able to get out of my head this evening. Leaves. Another matter to celebrate, right? The leaves, beautiful leaves, Tree City, 19 years we've been at Tree City, USA, I think, but every fall they fall. And starting next Monday, the Highway Department will be picking up leaves. It's really not that big a transition because they'll be picking up lawn and garden debris. We know people are doing some fall cleanup in their gardens too. And we know that a few people have already started putting out leaves, but we'll be in full leaf cleanup mode. I want to encourage everybody to look on the webpage. As always, we will have separate maps, one for bulk leaves and one for containerized leaves. Containerized leaves, whenever possible, please do that. They'll get picked up more quickly. They won't blow around the neighborhood as much. They'll be neater in the piles. But whether you containerize or whether you do it in bulk, please, please, please don't put them in the street. Leave them on the grass if you have a sidewalk between the sidewalk and the street pavement. If you don't have a sidewalk, leave them on your lawn close to the street. We're getting better as a community. I know, Judy, you get the word out, and your neighborhood is one of the best. But why are we so insistent on that? There's a lot of reasons. Safety for cyclists. We are a very resilient community, and notwithstanding the chill, there are still a lot of people on their bikes commuting, and if you're commuting at this time of year, it may be dark. You may not see those leaf piles. You may have to swerve into the street to avoid them, putting you in potential danger of an accident with our vehicles. But it's also a rainy time of year, and leaves in the street clog up our drains. They block drainage of storm water runoff, and can cause neighborhood flooding, can cause ponding in the streets, which is also dangerous. Plus, it's not allowed. It's illegal. So we're going to pick them up. Don't worry. The lawn is going dormant anyway this time of year. Don't worry if it gets a little yellow. It will grow back, and we will pick them up. Our highway crews are second to none. They work hard. So please, do them a favor. Do yourselves a favor. Please leave your leaves in the street. And remember, you can always check out those maps on the webpage to find out when our people are likely to be coming. We're making a lot of progress on community choice aggregation. We talked about that earlier this evening, and I'm looking forward to those public meetings that we're going to have, and the whole process that is, we keep using that acronym CCA, Community Choice Aggregation. But what it really means to you, the residents of Brighton, is the opportunity to get 100% renewable power bought in bulk. And that is going to be probably the single most significant sustainability effort we can make as a community. And I'm very excited to have that opportunity. The Brighton Fire Department open house was also mentioned, and that was a great time. And it really is.
That was terrific.
Yeah, and it's, it's at Firehouse Number 1. The fire department hosts it, but the police department, BVA, are there. I saw a couple of young children that looked very, very good on those Harleys, and I think you may have a couple of young motorcycle officers coming up through the ranks. So
Good. We need them.
save them a bike. They look good. But thank you to all our agencies. It's a family event. It's fun, but it's also knowledge impactful. So I really appreciate everybody that does that. And finally, it's another great time of year. This early in each school year, the students from the law and government class at the high school, as one of their classroom assignments, start reaching out to elected officials at all levels, and myself included. So I've begun to get inquiries from the law and government students. I'll be getting back to you. I know we'll be seeing some law and government students here at our meetings. And later this fall, I'll be in, as I do each semester, teaching a law and government class, walking them through a public hearing as if it might be held in the slightly fictional community of Barrontown. So stay tuned for that. It's always a lot of fun, something I really look forward to every year. That's all I have. Matters of the town clerk. Dan.
I just want to remind folks that tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote for this general election on November 5th. So if you are not currently registered, tomorrow is the deadline. I know we hosted, the group Indivisible was here on October 1st. Try to forecast the busiest day of the tax season for them to come on. Turns out, as Paula said, sometimes forecasts aren't exactly dead on, and I think I missed it by a day. It's hard to know. But there was still a lot of traffic, and I did register a few folks and answered a lot of questions. So it was still very beneficial to have them here. And like I said, tomorrow's it. And early voting is right around the corner. Certainly we'll have our next meeting before then, but October 26th, we'll be here before we know it. We'll have our own, not our own, but the site here in town at Empire State College that people have the opportunity to go to.
Yeah, and I really want to thank Empire State College for agreeing to be one of those locations. It's so important. The great article that I read this morning in the Schenectady Gazette about early voting and about voting in general, about voting in local elections and why it's so important to get registered now for this year. People often focus on the presidential elections. And of course, you want to get registered so you can vote in the 2020 presidential election. But really, these local elections are what affect day-to-day life. That's the message I bring to the law and government class when I'm there. So if you get a chance to see that article, great. But, you know, literally, if you moved across the street, or if you're new to Brighton from across the country, if you want to vote in the elections that matter the most, your local elections, tomorrow's your day. Please get out and register, and then either early voting or on November 5th, please get out to vote. Thank you for all you do election-related, Dan. Matters of Town Board.
I have a few items.
Go for it.
Just some town rec announcements. Our fall registration and classes have begun, and we invite you to check out all of our available programs and community events listed in our recreation brochure. Registration is required for most programs and can be done online, by mail, or in person at the Recreation Department. So please do follow our Recreation Department on Facebook or other social media to stay up to date with all of the latest updates. We also have brochures available at the Town Hall, Brighton Memorial Library, Brighton Central School District buildings, and on our website at www.townofbrighton.org/rec, R-E-C. We hope to see you and your family this fall. And our fall programming is continuing, but our winter and spring instructions, we're looking for instructors for that time period. So if you're passionate or knowledgeable about a certain career or hobby and you'd like to share that enthusiasm with the community, the Recreation Department is always seeking out new and energetic program instructors. So help us provide the community with with quality, affordable programming that includes some diversity. Our complete online program proposal form is available at www.townofbrighton.org/rec. Please check it out. I'd like to remind everybody that our Brighton Farmers Market is continuing. Please join us every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the Brighton High School parking lot. And we look forward to the conclusion of another outdoor season over the next couple months. In addition to that, our Bright Pen Senior Rides, this is a program sponsored by Lifespan and offers senior citizens living in Brighton or Penfield rides to medical appointments, religious services, and either town's recreation centers, is looking for volunteer drivers. This is a critical service to a lot of our seniors, so if you'd like to find out more about programming or becoming a volunteer driver, please do call at 585-340-8674. Again, that's 585-340-8674. And again, we already mentioned our fall community events. We hope to see you at some of those. That's all I have.
Thanks, Robin. Any other? Christine?
I have two items. One, continuing on the heels of the Brighton Fire Department Family Open House. They also have a prospective member information session coming up on Monday, October 21st at headquarters on East Avenue at 7 o'clock. The fire department is seeking volunteers from the community to help continue the tradition of responding to neighbors and strangers alike in time of need. You need to be at least 14 years old, and they say up to 55 plus. So don't count yourself out if you are seasoned in some ways. And also residency is not required. I highly encourage folks to sit in on one of the prospective member info sessions. You might be surprised to find out you have a passion for helping out others in the community through that protective service. The other matter, on September 22nd at the Brighton Farmers Market, you may have engaged with some enthusiastic Cornell University undergrads and graduate students from the Design Connect team. They're working on a project in Brighton that was spurred by the Reconnect Rochester Complete Streets Makeover project. We were not winners, but we really won the best consolation prize possible, which is the connection with this Design Connect team. They are working to encapsulate the vision, the community's vision for our Main Street, Monroe Avenue, from just outside of 12 Corners up to just about 590. They started their information gathering at the market on the 22nd of September. They're returning to Brighton on October 20th, Sunday. They'll be here in Town Hall in the lower level from 1 to 4 in the afternoon, and they'll be conducting a community workshop. You'll have the opportunity to drop in and see what they've gathered so far, what they understand the vision to be, and they'll be seeking input on that and taking it to the next iteration. Ultimately, the product we receive from the students on this re-envisioning is something that the town will be able to take to the state and make a case for improving the streetscape, making it more of a main street and less of a mini highway speeding between the city boundary and Pittsford. So we hope to see you on Sunday, October 20th, between 1 and 4 o'clock in the lower level meeting room.
Thank you, Christine. Anything else? Hearing none, can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters of litigation and collective bargaining?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFazio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. I don't anticipate coming back out into public session after the executive session. Our next board meeting will be on Wednesday night, October 23rd at 7 p.m. Thanks for being here and have a great night, everybody.